We really are spoiled for choice in the shops we encounter these days in TFT. Now that I really think about it, are we really? There's a lot of stuff that got nerfed recently, and the 1-cost chances increased across the board. I guess we're spoiled for choice if we are level 8. Yeah, that's it. Just go for level 8 or 9 and voila, S-tier champions galore. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another TFT Pro Guides video. If you didn't guess it already or didn't read the title, we'll be ranking all current heroes with the ranks of S, A, B, C, and D tier according to their current performance. As we did with the items, we are changing our approach to the tier list to make them more useful to you guys in the current content. As Riot has mentioned that patch 10.25 will only see small changes due to the holidays, this tier list is probably going to last quite a while. So try to squeeze the best ones into your comp for maximum LP gain while they are unchanged. Before we dive right on in, I just want to let you guys know that we have a Discord community and a new subreddit that is growing really fast. We have you to thank for that, and we want to continue building our community and helping you be a part of it. Make sure you click the link in the description down below. See you there. S tier. Our S tier includes champions that will be very familiar, as you see them in most comps that manage to top 4 and often top the whole lobby. There aren't many of them, as we truly put the ones worth buying and including in almost every comp up here. First up, Zilean. The Clockwork Wizard is doing pretty hot right now. His AoE GA might have something to do with it, along with the fact that he is quite strong at 1-star if you can protect him at all costs. He fits in many top comps, usually being slotted in both for Cultist and Mystic for that sweet bronze trait Cultist, which is essentially just an AoE knockup, but hey, that's useful too. Given that many AD comps have waned a bit like Talon, Mystic stocks are up again. When you see Zilean in your shop, you almost always gotta buy him. He's often worth just throwing in, like Yone, since if you cast, you got a good shot at winning. Next up is Kayn, our shady assassin. With the rise of ninja shade comps and Kayn often finding his place in there, he's absolutely destroying the backlines. Thankfully, shade got nerfed to 4 auto attacks, but the continuous utils on the single target can hurt a lot. Itemizing him is always going to be worth it, as he can use everything to a certain extent. He will do damage regardless, and you can build him tanky, and he'll do even more damage if you give him damage items and so on. He may not fit every single comp, but consider him as a possibility when you roll down on an 8 or go to 9 for legendaries. I mean, we can't really have those legendaries snag the spotlight from Yone. He has been the true MVP for quite a while now, and even after the nerf when they removed his knockup, they gave him a team wipeout damage instead. Pretty strong. Like Kayn, he can use most items as well, and the new untargetable during his spell actually manages to avoid a few things. It's pretty annoying when Jhin 4th shot lands on him and he casts and does nothing. Ouch. We would never leave Azir off the list. A staple excellent pick since the beginning of set 4, he continues to be an amazing level 9 addition, and has synergy with Keeper, both in the Keeper comp or with Riven in Dusk. The real reason to add him though is not his considerable spell or his synergies, no, it's his Emperor trait. The soldiers are absolutely marvels for positioning and can soak up so many different things. You can put them in places to intercept assassins or block space for them to move through. You can use them as Aatrox spellbait, which the entire front line will probably start attacking as well, giving time to the rest of your team to do stuff. Overall, an amazing champion. That concludes our S tier. That was short, right? These champions are currently so far ahead of the rest that they kind of deserve their own pedestal, and who are we to deny them? Especially Kayn. He's kind of scary. A tier. Our first champion out of the gates is Riven. She is proven bruiser in the front lines of Dusk, weaving and slashing, baiting and switching, slicing and dicing. Okay, I like Riven, so sue me. Due to Dusk giving her so much spell power, she usually goes full tank, with Ionic Spark being the closest to a damage item on her. She doesn't fit too many comps, but 4 Dusk works with various configurations, and Riven is in all of them. Jhin is up next, a close buddy of Riven's, as they often work together in the Dusk sharpshooter comps. He is also an obvious part of the 9 cultists. With the recent changes, you will always want to itemize this guy. I'm sure Jhin is so pissed that he gets 3 and not 4 items, but hey, that's life. Make sure you protect him with a Zilean, Azir soldiers, or other units so that he can stay in the corner and do as much damage as possible. Ashe is still here, by the way. Strong pick throughout the set, she continues to be so, and with slightly more flexibility compared to Jhin, since she makes more items work extremely well, not just Infinity as Last Whisper combo. Play her with Elderwood, the Hunters with Brawlers, or even with flexible comps including Vanguards and Adept. Her sheer playability gives her this A rating, as she can be plugged and played in many different situations. Speaking of Ashe, Warwick is up here as well. He is often part of her comps, but he can be a star of his own as well, with 6 Divine. You build Deathblade, Quicksilver, and Hurricane on him, and you have a game in your hands. Just make sure that you position properly and do not let him die too fast from a random burst. Set has some ups and downs, but remains a solid pick, both standalone or in a comp where he synergizes with other brawlers. The problem with Set is that he does really well when itemized, but not as well with other legendaries without items. He is still the best option to sit beside Warwick, and he can get some super clutch victories with his hard-hitting spell. Sejuani couldn't be missing here, right? She stuns the whole map, applies Morella if you haven't, and has a good chance of casting a second time time? Well, sign me up. Sedge can be found in many comps as a solo frontline or a filler for her CC. She's a fairly good unit to play as you transition, where you know you probably won't keep her, but she'll help you out for a while you level or try finding that unit that you truly want. Zed of course is an A tier, with him being the carry in a comp that wrecks everything right now. The base champion without Shade Chosen almost doesn't exist, but still, his strength as a unit is still enough to land him here. Shen is almost S tier, but his spell is kinda holding him back. It's fairly low impact, but with synergies with Adept, Mystic, and of course Ninja, they all make him invaluable, on top of a fairly good frontliner who works well without items as well. Kindred might fall off hard late game, but she is still hands down the best champion to get early. Her base spell damage is insane and she can carry your items like a pro, especially if they include mana or AP. Diana has been doing well lately despite her nerf and can even be used as an interesting early chosen, even if for some reason you don't really want to go into Moonlight Assassin's comp. Having her as a chosen is essentially a free win streak ticket early, and it's up to you whether or not you want to cast her as your carry. Pyke rounds out the A tier, being a unit that is often overlooked but should never be underestimated. He's good with no items, part of many top tier comps, and has an excellent early game, abusing early carries with the CC. Playing an early cultist comp with Pyke and some other assassin is a pretty sweet way to get the ball rolling in your game. This concludes our A tier. Would you have added someone to this list? Let us know in the comments down below. We really love to hear your experience. While you type though, let's go ahead and move on to the B tier. First one out of the gate in the B tier is Ezreal. Yes, a legendary gets a B. It happens. A couple of patches ago, that may not have been true, but Dazzler is kind of hard to fit in now, and Ezreal doesn't really merit a slot without using one of his traits, as it used to happen where you kind of just ignored Elderwood. Pick him up if you're playing Ashe, since between him, Lux, and Warwick, you have some pretty good synergies there. Speaking of Lux, there she is on the B tier. While not a protagonist in any comp, she does her job quietly and well. She almost always casts, and if you put her in the corner, she will almost likely hit multiple targets. If she is in her divine state as well, the damage is anything but negligible. Yuumi, that little cat, hasn't dropped too far off in the tier list, even though her popularity has dropped a bit. Spirit still sucks, but she is a mystic, and relatively early one at that. Her heals can be devastating to the enemy in the early game, where not enough damage is happening. Probably not your best choice for keeping one in the late game, but she can go ahead and be replaced by Zillion, no issue. Lilia is another legendary in the B tier. Honestly, she could be lower, but her values alone are insane to keep her here. Also, when she works, she works. Sleepy Time is a scary voice line to hear against Lilia, and someone is probably gonna explode. The fact that mages are extinct right now does not help her, as she suddenly only has one trait. Another champion chilling here in the B tier is Lee Sin. Riot has been really trying to get him to work well, but a few ups and downs have really landed him here. He's not as plug and play as other legendaries, though he performs well in his particular niche of divine or duelist comps. Lee likes mana items like HOJ, blue buff, and the like. Aatrox is part of this tier as well. His frontline capabilities are not stellar, but his spell is useful and forces the opponents to think differently to counter you. You can even counterplay their counter if you're facing assassins, in that you position your Aatrox where he'll pull those assassins away from your carries. It's pretty neat. Cassiopeia, oh how the mighty have fallen. Just like my ex, this one is quite the snake. This girl looks best wearing chalices, but you can make her work with other items I suppose. One of her strengths is that she doesn't need items to shine, especially with a small buff that she received to the damage amp last patch. Make sure that you position her in the front line so she ults faster, kinda like Sejuani. Garen is a monster early game, we all knew it, so he is not left to the gutter and we recognize that win streak potential when we see it. Really good tanky item user, especially Sunfire Cave. Give him a whirl. Get it? Or go ahead and give him a spin, because, anyway. Kennen of 10.22. If you asked me, I would tell you he's in the gutter of the lowest of low, tier D. Recent buffs to Keeper and him have elevated him. The Keeper comp with Chosen Kennen is pretty good, especially if you get him items like Morella or Quicksilver or GA. Of course, he's part of the ninja comps as well, so try to position him in the second line, not the front, as he's rather squishy and he's not able to get the cast off of his spell before dying. Hey, if I could give a B+ to someone, it would be to poor Yasuo. He has been doing really well, chasing his brother across TFT, working together, and having a stably strong comp like duelists when they cooperate. However, the comp has seen some decline in the recent patches, since bigger bursts are a thing that just kind of blast through Yasuo and he doesn't really have time to turn on the engine. Thresh is a solid pick throughout the game, if you need vanguards or dusk. His synergies carry him a lot, but the lantern shield is always nice to have. If he's chosen, he's pretty unkillable for a bit due to all the shielding, especially when he's not being mass targeted. And that's gonna be concluding our beats here, so let's go ahead and move on to the poor champs who gotta see. Talon didn't really study this patch. That C is expected given the nerfs though, and now we kind of skip him in shops. Well, at least I do. So sad that he got gutted so suddenly, but what can you do? Don't buy him unless you are playing the assassin build. He's probably not worth itemizing as much nowadays, but nobody is stopping you if you really want to see him jumping around, hitting like a wet noodle. Akali is right next to her fallen assassin brother, though her stint in being bad has been there for a while now. Akali is good as a Zeke's holder in the Zed Ninja comp, but other than that, she's just kind of a synergy bot, and she seems utterly incapable of doing anything anything useful other than that. Poor Kali, she deserves some help. Elise escaped the D tier by being part of the cultists and often being chosen for it to work. She provides some decent frontline early, but not greatly so. Thus, a C. Hecarim is worse than he looks, and honestly, he kinda looks pretty bad. If it wasn't for him being a great tank, item carrier, and an interesting chosen, then he would be lower. Try the old horsey out, especially if you're fielding vanguards. Other than that, he lost a lot of horsepower. Irelia is a few patches too late to be higher. She gets carried by her traits in the comps that she's in, but doesn't really feel absolutely terrible as a synergy bot. She has an AoE disarm, decent damage, and tanky stats to survive a little bit in the front line. Teemo is a bait. Seriously, even in TFT. He's only in the C tier because sharpshooters can be a thing in the early and mid game. His spell is pretty high impact when he hits multiple targets and can delay the enemy enough for your carries to get them. Jarvan's buffs were not barely noticeable last time, since he remains fairly low impact even with the keeper comp keeping unviable. If he casts, he can disrupt things a little bit, but his damage is low and at the same time, not really worth itemizing for, so he's kind of in an awkward position. Jinx's rework did not really hit the mark, even though she's supposed to be a sharpshooter. The CC is nice, but the lack of damage is evident now. She is interesting for fortune builds early on into the game, but she can't solo carry that part of the game as she used to. She also gets destroyed by diving units, lacking the damage to kill them or try to kill them before they kill her, something Jhin does fairly well. Kalista is one of the most forgettable champions on this set. You could probably remove her from the game and people would hardly notice. She can work really well with RFC, Runaan's, and Quicksilver, but if you invest so heavily in her, then you're missing out on high impact champions. Katarina keeps falling further and further down. Mystic being as strong as they are in this patch is one of the final nails in the coffin. Her traits don't really help her either, as two of them are not really strong comps. Overall, you can play Warlords with Cat, but try to squeeze in some 80 damage because you will lose quickly otherwise. Lissandra is down here as well, another synergy bot, but with a decent early game, hence the verdict of C. She is not something that you would instantly pick in the early game shop, but she's worth pursuing if you have Moonlight potential or an early Dazzler. Poor Morgana, how have you fallen? Morgana did nothing and her whole world is turned upside down, and now she's chilling in the C tier, since she can't really fit into most comps into the late game. Nunu has had a great time in TFT, quite literally rolling with the Sasquatch into our hearts. Unfortunately, that's not enough to get anything higher, as Nunu has trouble fitting in comps and is not that super impactful in the early and mid game. Vayne tried her own hand at a comp and it didn't work too well. Oh well, she did her best. She scales really well with the attack speed, so recurve bows it is. A chosen Vayne with Dusk or Sharpshooter can carry you for a long time, even not with optimal items. Nicolai is here for similar reasons to Vayne. Early game, a Nicolai Spear can win you the round, but she falls off harder than a stone down the Chrysler building. Honestly, I think you need to spare the gold on this one and choose somebody else. But, I mean, I guess you can pick her up and sell her later, as it seems to be the play for Nicolai. Xin Zhao rounds up tier C for us. His multiple buffs over the last few patches have not really helped him be the physical carry warlords desperately needed to be a better comp. Shin is not it right now, and he is struggling because of that. Alright, that was our list for tier C. Let's look at the lowest of low and beware. They are Legion. Ahri is D tier this patch. Yeah, let that sink in. Feeling old yet? Mages in general are struggling a lot this patch, and hopefully they will become more viable. Until then, feel free to ignore Ahri when she pops up in your shop. Annie is the same as Ahri. Fortune is really dangerous with the new player damage changes. Due to the absolute weakness inherent to the units, playing 1-star Fortunes and lose streaking is really tough, if not at all efficient and a coin toss. So poor Annie gets a D and goes home to Tibbers, who will certainly not be happy with his report card. Aphelios continues to be bad, which is fine because we are used to it by now. Basically another champion that you can completely ignore, and you'll get none the wiser by doing so. Evelynn is really inconsistent. If she could be a little bit less random with her targeting and her spell, she would be so much better. She is really tough to rely on as a carry though. Even Shade Evelynn is not that great of a proposition, and Zed is infinitely better than her. Fiora is of course down here. I'm sure you guys could have guessed that. She is a weak unit and can only help you out a little bit in the early game. Even then, she gets outshined early. Janna has fallen pretty far, but the lack of Enlightened being good and better mystics existing out there, she is fairly sad to play. Without Enlightened, her spell takes forever to cast, so it's not so effective either. Jax really needs to get a real weapon sometime soon, because he's in ELO hell. Really born unit, and only decent in the comps its traits are allocated to. Has some impact with his spell in the early game, but not enough. Lulu also got a buff to make everyone bigger faster, and guess what? She's a mage, so she still gets a D. This is one of the placements that could go higher should something change in the next patch to allow other mages to come back into the fold a little bit. Malphite is terrible. Outside of being a really early Maokai to get brawler synergy, don't do anything with him further down the road, unless you are playing Elderwood. Nami got wrecked in the last 2 patches and now her comp is dead and she is left out hanging. Another case of please don't buy this unit unless you really need it as a synergy bot. Sylas is another fairly boring champion, whose low stats can't get much done in the front line, or his low impact spell being what it is. Use him if you're playing Moonlight, otherwise hard skip. Tahm Kench is similar to Annie. Fortune being so dangerous early leads him into this spot. An early brawler synergy with Tahm isn't bad, but try to improve upon it with better champions as soon as you can. Twisted Fate, of course, is terrible individually. In Cultist, he's not terrible and does some fluff damage to help along. Having him carry AP or mana items is not too bad at least, even though he is made of paper. And he also throws paper. Magic paper. Veigar is a, let's say it together, mage. He does little to no damage and Mystic is a thing. Veigar can do damage but has so much trouble managing to do so in his slow and ponderous movement. Vi is down here too, though her chosen form is not too shabby. However, the champion's strength itself is fairly weak and does not bring much to the table, especially in the mid game. Finally, Wukong time. We distributed everyone to their tiers, so let's go ahead and see what Wukong has to offer. The Bonky Kong comp is dead right now, and you can play 6 Divine with him as an early carry, then switch him to let Wukong go. Okay, I think we got them all. Remember, this is based on available data and the experience of our top players right now. A tier list is a guide to prioritizing new champions, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't use a Tahm Kench in the early game or not pick up an REV finder at level 7 if he or she fits your comp. Now go on out there and climb that ladder. As always, we love your feedback and continue to bear it in mind while creating our videos. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts about our ratings. We really like interacting with our audience and hearing your opinions. With that all being said, my name is Nathan Ng. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.